She's not the woman I married. The thought slammed into me as I watched Emily's reflection in the darkened television screen, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips as her fingers danced over her phone. 3 months ago, our life was a storybook. Now, it was a mystery I couldn't solve, a puzzle built with late-night texts, hurried whispers, and the chilling realization that the woman I loved might be slipping away, one furtive exit at a time. But what I didn't know, the lies were just the beginning. "Hey, Mike, that steel beam's bent like your back." Joe, my coworker, snickered, his voice a sharp needle. I winced. Lately, jokes like that were hitting too close to home. Yeah, my back was bent. I was working my tail off for my family. For Emily. "Shut up, Joe. Your brain's the one that's bent," I retorted, trying to keep it light. The summer sun beat down mercilessly, sweat pouring down my back. The construction site buzzed around us, metal clanging, power tools whining, workers yelling. My everyday reality. My phone vibrated. A text from Emily. "Working late again tonight?" Just one line, and it felt cold. Before, she'd have sent something like, "Be careful driving home, love you." Lately, Emily'd been acting distant, like she was putting space between us. "Yeah, looks like it." "Sorry," I replied curtly. A pang of regret hit the moment I hit send, like I'd mirrored her coldness. "Okay." Her reply was even more curt. I sighed heavy. "What's up, Mike? Fight with a girlfriend or something?" Joe tilted his head, studying me. "Yeah, kinda," I answered vaguely. "I feel like there is a wall growing between my wife and me lately." "Whoa, that's rough, man. But hey," Joe grinned, "with a face like yours, you'll have no problem finding another woman in no time." "You are an idiot," I chuckled, playfully slapping him on the shoulder. "I have a family, Joe. I am not just going to throw it all away." Right. But everyone needs a break sometimes. How about we grab a few beers tonight?" I hesitated. Considering the situation with Emily, a distraction might not be a bad idea. But really, I should be heading home. "Nah, I am going to pass tonight. I am going to head home and try to talk to Emily." "All right, man. Anytime you feel like it, let me know." Joe looked a little disappointed, but plastered a smile back on his face. We got back to work. Around 5 p.m., the foreman yelled, "That's a wrap for today." I packed up my tools, took a quick shower, and headed home. Driving, Emily was on my mind. She was acting strange recently, constantly glued to her phone, even in the bathroom, in the shower. She never used to do that. A bad feeling crept into my mind, but I pushed it away. Emily wouldn't do that. We fell in love, got married, had 2 kids. Couldn't be true. I pulled into the driveway. Kids came running out of the living room. "Daddy, you are home." "Hey there, little guys." I scooped them up in a hug, smiling. Emily was in the kitchen. She must have heard me, but she didn't turn around. "I am home," I said. "Welcome home." Her reply was curt. I took a deep breath and walked toward her. "I got home early today. Want to grab some dinner together?" She looked slightly surprised. "Oh yeah, okay." Her response gave me a glimmer of hope. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she was just busy and wasn't avoiding me. We sat at the dinner table as a family, the kids chattering about their day at school. Emily smiled occasionally, but I could tell it was forced. After dinner, once the kids were asleep, I turned to Emily. "Emily, is something going on?" She tensed slightly. "No, nothing really. I feel like you've been avoiding me lately." I kept my eyes locked on hers. "You're imagining things. I am just busy." She wouldn't meet my eyes. I reached for her hand, but she quickly pulled it away. "Hey, Emily, what's going on with us? My voice edged with frustration. Nothing, she trailed off. Just then, her phone buzzed. She snatched it up, checking the screen. Her face went pale. Who is it? I couldn't help but ask. Just a friend, she stammered. I stared into her eyes. I felt like there was something hidden there, something I didn't know about. Emily, if there is a problem, let's fix it together. My words trailed off. She wouldn't meet my gaze, holding her phone close like a shield. That night, we slept back to back. My mind wouldn't shut down. Emily's behavior, that phone, the invisible wall growing between us, it all felt ominous. I made a decision. Tomorrow, I was going to call my friend David. He's a private investigator. I'd ask him to look into Emily. I hoped with all my heart that my fears were unfounded. David, I need a favor. I held my phone to my ear, keeping my voice low. It was early morning, the kitchen dimly lit as I sipped my coffee. Emily was still asleep in the bedroom. Whoa, Mike. What's up? Did you get yourself into some trouble with the cops again after too many drinks? David's voice was laced with amusement. Save the jokes for later. I sighed heavily. It's about Emily. I could hear the change in David's tone on the other end. What's going on? His voice took on a serious edge. She's been acting strange lately, like she's avoiding me and she's always on her phone. I recounted the events of last night, a tightness forming in my chest. David, please, can you look into Emily for me? A long silence. I could tell David was contemplating. Mike, are you sure about this? There was concern in his voice. Depending on what you find out, your life could change forever. I know, I said, barely above a whisper. But I can't live with this uncertainty. I need to know the truth, whatever it is. All right, David finally conceded, sounding resigned. I'll look into it. But Mike, be prepared for anything. After hanging up, a shiver ran down my spine. Was this the right thing to do? But there was no turning back now. That day at work, it was like walking through a fog. Every swing of the hammer brought Emily's face to my mind. Her kind smile, but lately, it seemed to be tinged with something dark. Hey, Mike, what's with the lovesick look? Joe's voice jolted me back to reality. Nah, nothing like that. I managed a weak smile. Just thinking about a few things. Tough times, man. Joe clapped me on the back. Too much thinking can fry your brain. In your case, it's probably already shorted out. Shut up, I retorted playfully. You are just jealous that your bad mouth keeps you from attracting women. Hey now, don't be harsh. Joe put a hand to his chest, feigning hurt. This light-hearted banter was a small reprieve. When I got home from work that evening, I noticed Emily quickly hiding her phone. Welcome home. Her voice held a hint of nervousness. Hey, I tried to sound normal. Anything happened today? No. She avoided my gaze. Just the usual. I started to speak, but the words wouldn't come. This distance between us, it was like we were strangers. Days passed while I waited for David to get back to me. My anxiety grew stronger. Talking to Emily felt like walking on eggshells. We both seemed afraid of breaking something precious, afraid to speak the truth. Even the kids seemed to sense the strangeness. Finally, David called. Mike, I have something to tell you. His voice was heavy. Can we meet? Yeah. I felt my voice tremble. I am on my way. We met at a small diner on the outskirts of town, a place we used to frequent back in college. David was seated by the window, a grim look on his face. He gestured for me to sit down, handing me a cup of coffee. I sat down. The bitter taste of the coffee matched the bitterness I knew was coming. "Just tell me," I said, bracing myself. David took a deep breath and spoke slowly. "Mike, I have bad news. Emily." He seemed to be searching for the right words. "She seems to be getting pretty close to the new construction company owner, Brandon." I felt like something inside me shattered. "What are you talking about?" My voice cracked. "They've been meeting frequently at cafes and—" David trailed off. "Hotels, too." My stomach churned. I covered my face with my hands. "Proof?" I asked, my voice a hoarse whisper. David was silent for a moment before handing me his phone. The screen displayed a picture of Emily and Brandon leaning in close, looking intimate. It was a cafe, I recognized. Emily's smile pierced my heart. "Damit," I muttered. "Mike, calm down." David placed a hand on my shoulder. "What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath and slowly lifted my head. I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I need to confront Emily. Right?" David nodded. "Just try to keep your emotions in check, okay?" I stood up. "David, thank you." "Any time." He offered a weak smile. "We're friends, right?" I walked out to my car, got in, and started the engine, but I couldn't drive right away. My head was spinning. Emily's smile, the photo with Brandon, our wedding day, the kids' birthdays, memories swirled inside my head. "Why, Emily?" I rested my forehead on the steering wheel, whispering to myself, and then I made a decision. I was going to face Emily tonight. I needed the truth. I needed to know what our future held. As I drove, I thought about the life we built in this town, the happy family everyone knew. Now it was crumbling. But I didn't want to give up. I wanted to get Emily back. I wanted to save our family. I took a deep breath at the front door, opened it, and stepped inside. I am home. I could feel the tremor in my voice. Emily's voice came from the living room. "Welcome home." I steeled myself. Tonight, I would find out everything. Our future depended on it, even if it was painful. "Mike, have you heard about Emily?" I stopped dead in my tracks. It was Tom, the farmer from the neighboring town, in the produce aisle at the supermarket. His eyes held a mix of sympathy and curiosity. "Yeah," I replied weakly. "I heard. That's rough. A good guy like you." He shook his head. I cut him off, hurrying my cart along. "Sorry, I am in a rush." Stepping out of the store, the harsh summer sun hit me in the face, almost mocking my situation. The news of Emily and Brandon's affair had spread like wildfire through Oakwood. It was the curse of small-town living. Everyone knew. Everyone was whispering. I got in my car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. It had been a week since my confrontation with Emily. The memory of that night was still raw. "Emily, I need to talk to you." Emily, who had been watching television in the living room, turned at my voice. I saw a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "What is it?" She tried to sound calm. I took a deep breath and started about Brandon. The color drained from Emily's face. "What about him?" "I know." My voice trembled. "About you and Brandon. You are having an affair, aren't you?" A beat of silence. Then Emily's tears started to fall. "I am sorry, Mike." Her words pierced my heart like a knife. "Why?" I choked out. Was there something missing in our relationship? Emily looked up, meeting my gaze. I saw regret and determination in her eyes. "Brandon is attractive. He's exciting in a way you are not." Her voice was soft but resolute. I wanted to find myself again." My anger flared. "Find yourself? Is that why you betrayed your family? No, Emily cried. It's not like that. Her voice trailed off. A heavy silence fell between us. The car horn blared outside, bringing me back to reality. The traffic light turned green. I hurried to get going. On my way home, the stares of the townspeople stung, sympathy, curiosity, and contempt. I kept my head down. The streets I once walked with pride now felt like a living hell. When I got home, there was a letter in the mailbox. My breath hitched when I saw the return address. It was from my parents. Inside, a short note. Mike, we heard. It's tough, but we're on your side. Come home anytime. I pressed the letter to my chest, tears welling up in my eyes. When I walked inside, Emily was in the kitchen. We met eyes, but there was no trace of the love we once shared, just exhaustion and regret. Mike, Emily started. I promised Brandon I wouldn't see him again. I nodded silently, but the words didn't bring me comfort. Trust once broken is hard to rebuild. How are the kids? I asked. They're staying at a friend's house. Emily's voice held a hint of guilt. I just wanted them to get away from all of this. I sighed deeply. I had dragged my kids into this mess. That night, I sat alone in the attic, drinking whiskey. The stars in the night sky seemed impossibly distant. My phone rang. It was Joe. Hello? My voice was weak. I nodded silently, but the words didn't bring me comfort. Trust once broken is hard to rebuild. How are the kids? I asked. They're staying at a friend's house. Emily's voice held a hint of guilt. I just wanted them to get away from all of this. I sighed deeply. I had dragged my kids into this mess. That night, I sat alone in the attic, drinking whiskey. The stars in the night sky seemed impossibly distant. My phone rang. It was Joe. Hello? My voice was weak. Mike, how you holding up? Joe's voice was laced with concern. Yeah, I'm okay, I lied. You need to take some time off work. I'll talk to the foreman, but don't argue. Joe's voice was firm. You need to rest. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. Everyone might need some time to cool down. I nodded wordlessly. He couldn't hear me. Thank you, Joe. After I hung up, the loneliness washed over me again. I opened the window and let the cool night air in. I heard a dog barking in the distance. The night in this town, which once felt so peaceful, now felt suffocating. Memories of Emily and I flooded my mind. The day we met, her smile when I proposed, our wedding, our kids' births, and then the picture with Brandon. I clenched my fists, anger and sadness mixing together, but I didn't want to give up. I wanted to protect this family, this life. But what do? I looked up at the stars. There were no answers there, just cold, brilliant lights staring down at me. The time off that was coming was a chance to think. My relationship with Emily, the kids, my life in this town. I needed to evaluate it all. I took a deep breath and resolved to get through this ordeal, no matter how difficult it would be. For my family, for myself. I closed the window and headed to bed. Tomorrow was a new day, and maybe, just maybe, the start of a new chapter in our lives, for better or worse. Sunlight streamed into the kitchen. I sat sipping coffee, silent. Emily sat across from me, equally silent. The kids were asleep upstairs. This quiet was a stark representation of our current state. Mike, Emily broke the silence. What's going to happen to us? I sighed heavily. Honestly, I don't know. For a week, I'd been thinking. Anger, sadness, and the beginnings of resignation. All those emotions swirled inside me, but I still didn't have the answers. Is it really over with Brandon? My voice quivered. Emily met my eyes, looking straight at me. Yes, it's over. Her words brought a mix of relief and bitterness. Just because it was over didn't mean the hurt would disappear. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Who could that be? Emily tilted her head. I got up and went to the door. When I opened it, Brandon stood there. Mike, his voice was tense. I need to talk to you. For a moment. Anger welled up inside me. This man had ruined my life, but I took a deep breath and forced myself to remain calm. Fine, come in. When we got back to the living room, Emily's face was pale. Brandon, why? Brandon sat down, looking at both of us, his shoulders slumped. First, let me apologize. I know that's not enough, but I caused a lot of trouble for the two of you. He ran a hand through his hair, his voice laced with exhaustion. I screwed up big time. I listened silently, waiting for the but. Actually, Brandon continued, his voice barely a whisper, things are complicated. I am leaving town. What? Emily's voice was sharp, laced with panic. Yeah. Brandon nodded, not meeting our eyes. The new project in New York. Well, it's not really about the new project. He paused, taking a deep breath. This whole mess. This town is too small, and word got around. The whispers, the stares. It followed me. It followed my company. He finally looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame and anger. The contracts, they all started getting canceled, one after the other. The investors are pulling out. I am up to my neck in debt. He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him. I can't afford to stay. I can't do business here anymore. It's over. I looked at him, the mixed emotions swirling within me. Anger was still there, but so was a strange sense of almost pity. It was a mess of his making, but he was being crushed by the weight of it, and there was something about that cut through the anger. I'll be honest, Brandon continued, his voice now flat. My relationship with Emily, it was important to me. He stopped talking, his eyes fixed on the floor. But, I prompted, but it was a mistake. Regret colored Brandon's eyes. We just gave in to each other's loneliness, and it was selfish. It hurt more people than just me or you. Emily nodded slightly, tears streaming down her face. Yeah, Mike. Brandon finally turned to me, his voice tight. You are a good man. Take care of Emily. You are much better than a guy like me. Shut up, I interrupted, my voice rising. I don't need to hear that from you. The truth was, I didn't want to be better. I wanted my life back. Brandon nodded silently, accepting my words. I am grateful you are leaving, I added, a bitter edge to my voice. A heavy silence descended upon us. Well, Brandon stood up, his posture defeated. I am going now. You two do whatever it is you have to do. After he left, Emily and I faced each other again. Mike, tears glistened in Emily's eyes. I am so sorry. Wait. I raised my hand. Don't say anything right now. I stood up and looked out the window. The sky was clear. The view was the same as always, but it felt like everything had changed. Emily, I turned back to her. Tell me honestly, do you want to try to fix our relationship? Emily closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she slowly opened them. Yes, I do. Determination filled her voice. Mike, I don't want to lose you. I want to protect our family. I nodded slightly. Okay. but it's going to take time. I know. Emily stood up and walked towards me. But I'll work hard. I'll do anything to fix our relationship. I looked at her. I felt a glimmer of the love I had for her returning. Let's do it, I said quietly. Tears streamed down Emily's face. She threw her arms around me. I am sorry. I am so incredibly sorry. I held her close. My anger was still there. My hurt hadn't healed, but her warmth sparked a flicker of hope for our future. Just then, we heard the kids' voices from upstairs. Daddy! Mommy! We looked at each other and managed a small smile. Let's go, I said. The kids are waiting. Emily nodded. Yeah, let's go. As we walked up the stairs, I pondered. I wasn't sure if this was the right decision, but for my family and for myself, I decided to give us another chance. When we got to the top of the stairs, the kids ran to us. Daddy, Mommy. We hugged them tightly. In that moment, everything felt right. Good morning, little guys. I forced a smile. Want to go out somewhere today? The kids cheered. Emily looked at me, surprised. Really? Hope sparked in her eyes. Yeah, I nodded. It's a new beginning for the whole family. A genuine smile finally graced Emily's face. Let's get ready then, she told the kids. It's a special day. The kids raced to their rooms. Emily and I faced each other again. Mike, Emily whispered. Thank you. I simply nodded. Words weren't needed. We got started on dinner together. Emily chopped vegetables while I grilled the meat. The kids helped set the table. Hey, Daddy. Amy came over to me. You and Mommy are getting along really well lately. I stumbled over my words for a moment. Kids are impossible to fool. Yeah, I smiled. Your dad and Mom are trying their best. Amy nodded, seemingly satisfied. We laughed together around the dinner table. We talked about everyday things. The kids' school day, Emily's volunteer work, my job. Just a normal family having a normal dinner. But for us, it was a precious moment. After dinner, when the kids were asleep, Emily and I sat in the living room drinking tea. Mike, Emily spoke softly. Are we going to be okay? I looked straight at her. Yeah, we're going to be okay. Tears welled up in her eyes. Really? Yeah, I said with conviction. We're going to keep walking this path together. Through thick and thin. Together. Emily leaned against me. I felt comfort in her closeness. Outside, the night wind rustled the trees. A quiet night. But in our hearts, the beat of a new beginning echoed. This was our restart. It wasn't perfect, and whispers still lingered around town, neighbors casting sideways glances, rumors refusing to fade entirely. I hadn't forgiven her completely, not yet. But I knew that someday, maybe not soon, but someday, I could find it in my heart to let go of the pain. There was a definite glimmer of hope. We had started a new life in this town, in this house. We couldn't change the past, but the future was ours to shape. Listening to Emily's gentle breathing, I made a promise to myself. I would protect this family, this love, and tomorrow, another new day would dawn, full of promise and the strength to keep moving forward, despite the shadows of the past. Together, we would face whatever came our way, building a future filled with love and hope, one day at a time, healing and growing stronger with each passing day.